1,530 hours. So, where did all these tests come from? Well, in 1983, a report entitled A Nation at Risk stated that America was being outperformed by other countries in areas of government and education and business. The solutions that the government offered were policies and investment. One such policy active today was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which began to administer annual tests in 1994, making one Department of Education standardized test per year. In 2002, the No Child Left Behind Act reauthorized the ESEA and added 5 more tests, making some students take two tests per year, a total of 17 tests between K and 12. The current initiative of the Common Core, authorized in 2013, adds 4 tests per year, making a total between K through 12 of 65 tests. Along with an increase in testing, there has also been an increase in spending towards these tests. With adjustment for inflation, in 1955, $7 million was spent directly per state towards standardized testing. This skyrocketed towards $1.7 billion per state in 2013. This is the current amount of money that is being spent towards these tests. Now, spending is not always bad. When we see an increase in investment, however, we would suppose that the scores from these tests would be going up along with this investment. However, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the average high school American reading score has remained borderline basic since 1992. So the question is, why has performance flatlined? My thesis today is that standardized testing is hurting not only reading scores, but overall reading success. And the reason why it is doing that, I believe, is that research shows that one of the driving forces of reading is curiosity, which just happens to be biologically founded in the brain. So where did reading come from? Historically, we find that it is a human adaptation. We have not always been reading. Anthropologists tell us that humans evolved 200,000 years ago, and yet we have the first known human writing only 6,500 years ago. This shows us that the brain had to adapt to a new invention and from there move on. And a new science called fMRIs, or brain imaging, shows us that there is no specialized brain center for reading, like we have for seeing or speaking. And instead, the brain co-opts more than 13 areas in order to be able to read. This is a very complex process. And so researchers looking at this are amazed at how fast the brain can adapt to this process. And yet, this complexity can also lend itself to fragility, which is why some kids fail. Reading is a very fragile process, and we see this in the example of dyslexia. 20% of the world's population suffers with this problem, and that would be 60 million Americans. So with all of these problems contributing against reading success, we wonder, why do we read? Well, according to a poll by the National Public Radio, 75,220 Americans were asked, what is your top favorite young adult fiction? The reply was, Harry Potter. A follow-up question was, why did you read all 7 books? The almost unanimous reply was, because we wanted to know what happened next. We read because we're curious about what we're going to find out, whether it's factual, such as the date of earliest humans, or fictional, how will Harry Potter defeat Voldemort? Well, Like I was telling you before, there is a biologically grounded force within the brain, an actual center for curiosity. And that would be the reticular arousal system. It is a column of nerve cells extending through the lower part of the brain and lights up during explorative reading or play. The behaviors that immediately happen with the reticular arousal system are alertness and intensity of attention. When curiosity is piqued, many studies show that other areas of the brain are enhanced, and activity does much better, as it would say. One of my favorite parts about this is that after the reticular arousal system lights up, immediately afterwards, the limbic reward system lights up as well. It floods the prefrontal cortex with dopamine, which makes you happy. And it shows us that if we can encourage the type of reading that will make our students curious, enhance the reticular arousal system, it will light up the limbic reward system, it will make our students happy, and thus attach pleasure with reading. The problem is that testing kills curiosity. Testing is associated much with the problem of test anxiety, and test anxiety works this way. In anticipation of test, your prefrontal cortex is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, which act a little bit different from dopamine. Instead, your brain is sent into a fight or flight mentality, which is completely appropriate if you're in the jungle and faced with a jaguar. But if you're sitting in front of a test, it prevents you from thinking clearly and performing well. The impact of this upon reading is that we're finding that more and more students are experiencing test anxiety, and is affecting their ability to enjoy reading throughout the school year. And it is a larger problem than some people would realize. 36% of K-12 students experience moderate to high test anxiety in school, and that would be 10 million kids. Now, when I say test anxiety, I'm not talking about that you may have felt at the beginning of this presentation. I'm speaking of the type of test anxiety that is so prevalent that upon the Stanford 9 exam, there are instructions of what to do with a test booklet in case a student vomits upon it. This creates a vicious cycle. We're teaching to the test in hopes to prepare our students for the test that will be administered at the end of the quarter. In response to the growing number of tests, more and more students are becoming anxious. The rising number of anxious students and the growing intensity of anxiety throughout their academic lives is leading to more and more failures, not only on the test, but even in their desire to read and their desire to learn more. The solution that we currently offer our students is to once more teach the test. However, I believe that there is a way to break this vicious cycle of reading anxiety, and that is to de-emphasize testing. A benefit towards de-emphasizing testing is the reallocation of funding and instructional time towards subjects that have been proven by study after study to enhance curiosity, which we now know through brain imaging and other research is actually the biologically and behaviorally grounded way to help our students, encourage them in their reading and in their learning lives. Some subjects that may help in this process and have also subsequently been taken out of many school curriculums from the extra time that has to be devoted towards these preparation for testing would be music. Music gives kids a creative outlet and is shown to reduce a lot of cortisol levels. Art helps them create a little original piece for themselves, get a little out of their system. And speaking of out of your system, Let's go to PE and recess. Even recess in some schools has been taken out of the curriculum. But this is vital towards helping a kid getting it, shaking it loose, so that when they get back into their classroom chairs, they are ready to learn, ready to read, and ready to enjoy life. Here's the stairway to success. Up these stairs, we may show our students the joy in reading. We may show them that curiosity is not only the biologically grounded way to help us learn to read, but it is the way that we can learn in general, the way that we truly are honor scholars, scholars of anything. So instead of stopping on every step to take another test, let's keep moving forward. And in case you were curious, Ajaccio is the capital of Corsica. Thank you.
Questions?
What you got? Yes, sir?
Did you say earlier that this what is it, the R group?
Reticular arousal system.
Yeah. That if we can get that to fire, it enhances learning on a broader spectrum.
Yes, you did hear that.
Is there any research to support that?
Uh-huh.
I mean, in what way does it?
Oh, it's really fascinating because when the reticular arousal system lights up, it enhances intensity of attention and alertness, which, as you can imagine, that would help you in any type of situation that you're in. If you can focus on something more and also be more alert, awake, more explorative. And then also, as well, the limbic reward system floods your prefrontal cortex with dopamine. So if you're happy, then you want to do something. And it's hard to do things when you don't want to. Yes, ma'am?
First, I wanted to say I'm very impressed with your research. There's a lot of really good things coming out of your presentation. So one of my really good friends is a middle school teacher in Texas. And one of the problems she has in her classroom is that her administration is now penalizing teachers for students doing poorly on their form of standardized testing. So she's in this really weird, rock up against a hard place, but she wants to encourage some of her students to be more creative with her reading. But if she doesn't, teach the test, she loses her job. How can we maybe move towards this acceptance? I love your idea of less emphasis on the test. I know it's a really broad question, and one person can't answer, but what's maybe your gut instinct on that?
Okay, so
how can we encourage, administration to not be so pro-testing, especially in K through 12?
Yes, it's a very difficult question, something I've been really grappling with. And part of the really big problem with that is something that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, all that spending. Where is that coming from? So I looked into that, and it's very politically driven, and it's not like these people are investing in this with the idea that they want to make straight lines for kids and everything like this. They're investing in our kids because they want to help them. It seems against what would be right, but the politics and the spending, so that's why I was saying that, because some people say the answer is to defund, but I don't think that defunding is possible. It's just not, at least, it might be possible far in the future, but there are kids that are failing right now, and we need to help them. So that's why I was suggesting de-emphasizing testing and reallocating funding towards different programs, because the teachers, they want to teach. And so I was thinking moving that funding over towards those programs that will help students' curiosity, maybe will help to de-emphasize tests more, and then maybe we'll take the problem away from the shoulders of those individual teachers all around